Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our beloved Alok. We are continuing in the book of Birth and Quest, Canto 2, The Growth of the Flame, page 362. And we had done about 7 or 8 lines, but maybe we can go over a little bit more.
Yeah.
Shall we start from the top of the line,
Yes.
a boundless knowledge?
Yes.
Good.
So, there is a question that is not often asked, but it's there in the back of the mind, that how does a being with a higher consciousness connect with the world? So, traditionally we have this strange idea that a being with a greater consciousness will be like a guru, and there would be number of disciples around. This is how he can't be a normal regular guy. But as we see here, and Mother herself says in one of her talks very beautifully that there can be, and there are, she uses the word there are, 1929, beings who live in the higher consciousness, but they don't speak much about it. So people don't know. So it's not necessary that they have to express it in terms of, books or philosophy, or take some classes or initiate people. They may just move around life and even leave this earth without people really getting to know that here is somebody who has lived with a higher consciousness. This is something very interesting because we have a very different view. Of course, those who are nearby will get to feel something or the other. But it's not necessary that he may involve himself in what is classically known as spiritual life. So, spiritual life can express in manifold ways. Through art, painting, music, even everyday conversation of a spiritual person is part of his, who he is within. It flows naturally.
We had many of them here.
Yes.
And they weren't showing off their extraordinary
Absolutely.
powers or anything. You would meet Amrita or Ambu or Nolini, and they were just whoever they were.
And sometimes we can be very much misled by appearances. So, someone like Swami Vivekananda, today is his, I think, birth anniversary. When Sri Aurobindo was asked, he was told that it seems that Swami, I think Brahmananda, was that time the head of the Ramakrishna Math. He said about his realizations, people say that are greater. Sri Aurobindo says, yes, in terms of realization and heights of realization, he is much greater. But he has hardly gone out, he has remained inside the mud, and he was the one who used to manage Swamiji when Swamiji used to, get his moods. But Swami Vivekananda, without a doubt, was a very powerful instrument of the divine. That was he had come down, missioned for this. But normally people don't know about some of those who had realized to great heights. But people don't even know their names. If you read some of the books, there is a particular book of Sri Ramakrishna and his disciples. They lived with God. And it's amazing when you read the stories of those who are not so well known, the unsung heroes, and yet they are so beautiful and they have, developed so much. So,
I would even say that there are many in the ashram who don't show themselves at all.
yes.
They go quietly
yes.
to their work, and then they go back to their house.
But amazing experiences. I am aware of such
exactly.
people. Amazing experiences. The inner life is so rich, and they can pass off, as somebody very simple. But
yes.
So we must know the difference between those who are meant for a certain work, what is called in India as vibhutis. And therefore they have a special divine breath, moving their life. But at the same time, spiritual realization experiences is a vast field. And one may be realized without really the world knowing about it. Sri Raman Maharshi himself was an example. For many years, he had realized, but he used to sit on the road and nobody could recognize. It was Vasishtha Ganpati Muni who first recognized that he is a realized person. That's how he became Ramana, the Raman Maharishi. Otherwise, they didn't know. Yeah, so, how was the Divine Mother's dealing with the men and women and children and the world around of those times? How does he live and breathe and act? A boundless knowledge greater than man's thought, a happiness too high for heart and sense, locked in the world and yearning for release, she felt in her, waiting as yet for form. So she could experience that there is a delight, there is a truth, there is a love which has not yet manifested on earth, and she is carrying inside, like in the womb, carrying the sun inside the womb.
And she's still very young, remember.
Yes.
This is the early stages of her life.
It asked for objects around which to grow. So the contact of the world brings out. That is the purpose that the contacts, actually world is meant to bring out what is within us. So if in contact with the world mud comes out, that means, well, that's what it was. If venom comes out, well, that's what was inside. And if beauty and wisdom and love comes out, that means that's what was hidden inside. And nature strong to bear without recoil the splendor of her native royalty. So last time I think we did share this aphorism of Sri Aurobindo, where he says, I have not come here to create mutts and sannyasis and all those things which are the old fiasco, what he has called as the old fiasco. I have come to call the souls of the strong, the Leela of Krishna and Kali. So that's what. And he gives another very beautiful in that aphorism, the happiest boy or the happiest boy and the strongest girl in the crowd. So when this happens, then you should know that the new creation has come. Now, you know how he has seen and foreseen, and you can see that sometimes.
And he even said, I don't want saints.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't like my yoga.
Oh, that mother at one place says, I am an unsaintly saint. Oh, in Bangla writings, in one of his letters, so Sri Aurobindo breaks all limits. He says, if they look at me, they will not know that I am a yogi by all standards. Even he says, I am a grahast. He says such things that are beyond, I don't care about any social norms. I don't care to speak always about, what is called as sacred things. And so if people look at me, I smoke, they would not pass me as a yogi. So he writes a very interesting letter where Sri Aurobindo half jokingly writes all this. And in fact he says, I am practicing yoga, and then he adds tantra, and that too of the left hand type. Oh. It's very strong worded letter. So I was recently taking out, for his Pondicherry period, then I saw this, I was in a dilemma, should I put it or not? Then wisdom prevailed, I said no, it's too mature for anybody to, so I said no. It's very powerful, he has done everything and gone beyond. Yes. So nothing, that's why his yoga is a complete synthesis. There is nothing which is left out, which has been missed out of the purview of human and the divine. Her greatness and her sweetness and her bliss, her might to possess and her vast power to love. So she needed strong natures. When the divine loves, there is a big danger. You may start feeling it's me. There were people here also who lost the balance thinking that it's me, I am special, that's why she loves me. I have seen these two contrasting responses. One in a very old sadhika, no more, who was all the time, mother taught me this, mother told me this, mother, me, it's all about her. And another one, which is of course Pranabda, he said, what saved me was that I always kept my head on my shoulders. Otherwise the things she has told me, if I were to share it, there would be a line right up to the samudra to touch my feet. But I had to keep my head on the shoulders and know that she is saying it is all her, nothing to do with me. So, how much one has to keep remembering to be humble that it's nothing to do with me, but only with the Divine Mother. Otherwise, how easy it is to, trip over. So she needed strong nature to pour her love, to pour her bliss. Look at Amrita. I mean, mother could scold him and even slap him, and he would be very happy. And mother would scold him, and Amrita would keep looking down and keep smiling. And somebody asked, "You are smiling when mother is scolding?" He says, "Yes, see, nobody else he loves like this."
You are stupid, Amrita.
You are stupid, Amrita, and he is smiling. He said, "See,
yes, mother, I'm stupid."
She loves me." Yeah, he would say, "Yes, mother, yes, mother." He said, "See, how much she loves me that she can say such things to me." So, yes, that is true, because after all, that kind of love they received, some of them, and they knew how to keep themselves balanced, the love and bliss. Earth made a stepping stone to conquer heaven. In fact, regarding this, one more place he says, people when they come to meet a spiritual man, they have their ideas of a spiritual man. So she gives the example of somebody who went to meet a spiritual man and saw that the person was living in luxury. We have stories of Janak, but people forget now, too much of asceticism stamp. He said the first thing he thought that, he can't be a spiritual person. Why? Simply because he is living in material luxury. He says people don't realize that spirituality has nothing to do with our, it can use anything. This idea of asceticism, that you have to live in a certain way, that is the sign of spiritual life. Earth made a stepping stone to conquer heaven. The soul saw beyond heaven's limiting boundaries, met a great light from the unknowable, and dreamed of a transcendent action sphere. This was an inner life, that she was dreaming of the transcendent and the dreams, how to manifest them. We cannot dream those things. We can dream only what is within the limits of the cosmic consciousness. It may be beyond our individual thing, but it is there in the cosmos. But she is dreaming of transcendent things. Aware of the universal self in all, she turned to living hearts and human forms, her soul's reflections, complements, counterparts, the close outlying portions of her being, divided from her by walls of body and mind, yet to her spirit bound by ties divine. So each of the persons, actually in a certain sense, each one that we meet in life is a reflection of something within us. That's why our relationships are an objective mirror. We discover something within us through people. And the more complex you are, the more personalities you have within, the more you will have this kind of a situation. But with each one, there will be a different and unique relationship. Now, she is describing that each one with whom she was connecting, they were something or the other bound to her through, divine ties. Amrita himself, for example, that, he is the one who is supposed to have thrown the straw, making a cross when she was, as Joan of Arc, being burnt at the stake. And with many others, Sri Aurobindo speaks of some of them with regard to him. Some of them were in French Revolution. So she has been with many of these people in previous lives in different ways, and they were all called this time. And each one thought that mother is closest to me. But with each one, it was a unique and different tie altogether. People didn't remember, but she remembered all of them.
And there's a beautiful line in Savitri. You may remember the beginning of it. Bound all to all with her as golden tie.
Yes. So, overcoming invisible hedge and masked defense and the loneliness that separates soul from soul, she wished to make all one immense embrace. So we are all the time moving with hedges and thorns of defense. Thorns of fallen nature are the defense. So on one side we blame the world that, see, I'm alone, there is no friend of mine. But actually we are the ones who have shut ourselves in narrow limiting walls. But she could overpass that. And even somebody who was trying to hide inside a small little cocoon, she could reach out there, and that's how she is. And there are classic examples of people who I mean, Dara when he came, and how mothers said, "You are Dara of that age," who had translated, some of the Upanishads into Persian. So, like that, she could reach out. Hutadi, so much alone, always she would have this suffer from loneliness, and yet for the Divine Mother, she was her friend. So, she was, for everybody, she was a friend. But yet something within her lived apart that he will reveal little later. She wished to make all one immense embrace, that she might house in it all living things, raised into a splendid point of seeing light, out of divisions, dense, inconscient cleft, and make them one with God and world and her. So, there have been disciples who would not see eye to eye with each other. I am not naming, but three classical, like three sides of a triangle who cannot see each other. But when it came to her, they are all around her. Her love is holding them together. So even now, sometimes it's a very amusing sight when, you live here, you come to know people, tend to be at loggerheads with each other. But as far as the samadhi is concerned, they will all go. They will all have their prayers. It doesn't matter. So she is the golden link who binds all of us together, and it is her love because of which all of us, so diverse, so different, have come together. And who knows, some of the people may be sworn enemies. Imagine Hector and Achilles, sworn enemies. When Dilip Kumar Roy came to know he was Hector, he felt very bad that I was taken around 7 days around the palace by this fellow called Achilles. Thank God he didn't discover Achilles in that time. So this is how, these two brothers, Dara and Prashant, they were actually Aurangzeb and Dara. Yes, so it's strange. The two brothers who had, he had beheaded his elder brother and they were brought together. But it's true that Prashant, toward the later time, he actually lost his head. So the man walked all the way from Pondicherry to Hyderabad. How did he walk? You don't know, those days there are no, markers and all. So he walked on that railway track. It took him 2 years to reach there. And eventually he died there, incognito. So, but this year, mother had given him the task of looking after his elder brother. Look at him. So, strange, ways of... so, it doesn't matter. To the divine, it's not like, enemies, this, that. Because Aurangzeb had a part in him, the zealot fervor for God. Everything else he did was horrible, of course. But he had a zealot fervor for God. For him, his God was like ultimate. And that was probably that aspect which drew him.
I'll read it.
Yes, please.
Only a few responded to her call. Still fewer felt the screened divinity and strove to mate its godhead with their own, approaching with some kinship to her heights. Uplifted towards luminous secrecies, or conscious of some splendor hidden above, they leaped to find her in a moment's flash, glimpsing a light in a celestial vast, but could not keep the vision and the power, and fell back to life's dull, ordinary tone.
So, very interesting stories. Only a few responded to her call. Still fewer felt the screened divinity and strove to mate its godhead with their own. So, one, of course, came with mother, who was her friend. And mother said from a previous life. Many of these, 29 to 31 conversations are with an English woman who had come with the mother. But equally, there have been instances, Alexandra David Neal, who knew there is something special about her. But she could never, understand that she could be supreme. So there are very interesting instances where she even came to know that mother is a little unwell. So she says, I am sending you my blessings. So mother laughed. She laughs. She says, what shall I tell her? Shall I say that I am blessing myself like that? This was. And when she came, mother kept telling her that, Buddha is all about love. He is still there with you and he has love for you. And that she could not accept because Buddha had to be in nirvana. How can Buddha be here and Buddha have love? It's impossible. So she narrates all these incidents where, people came, different types, who would had the audacity to send her blessings. Why? Because he's a little unwell. So mother, we are all praying for you, mother. She writes very sweetly, mother, we are all praying for you. And mother, what shall I tell them? That I am also praying. So very beautiful. So they felt there is something about her, but could not, very few could see. So she says that there are two kinds of disciples. One who see me as the Divine Mother, and the others who see me as a typical traditional guru. So those who see me as a typical traditional guru do not understand the relation of those who see me as the Divine Mother. And those who see me as the Divine Mother, they cannot understand when they see that, sometimes if there is a sickness or something, they cannot imagine because, she's the Divine Mother. How could she fall sick? So they have this idea. Whereas the others understand because she's a guru and their relation is like you give me instructions and I am going to follow it. Whereas the others, their approach is you take me along and you carry me. And mother says depending on their stance, things happen to them. So those who believe she is the Divine Mother, she responds like that. And those who believe she is a traditional guru, she responds like that. So,
And Alexandra David Neal was a very powerful lady.
Very powerful lady.
She stared down a tiger.
Yes, there are very interesting incidents of her life.
Yeah.
Mother has called this story Mr. Tiger. Actually, she closed her eyes when the tiger came nearby and she got into a state of Buddhist compassion. That if this, you have to eat me up, then eat me up with that compassion. Then after some time, she realized nothing has happened. So she opened the eyes and there was no tiger. Mother recounts this story that how if you are in a beautiful inner state, how it can affect thee.
A mind daring heavenly experiment, growing towards some largeness they felt near, testing the unknown's bound with eager touch. They still were prisoned by their human grain. They could not keep up with her tireless step, too small and eager for her large-paced will, too narrow to look with the unborn infinite's gaze. Their nature weary grew of things too great.
Only a few responded to her call. Still fewer felt the screened divinity. Even some of the, sadhus and all these people had come. And mother later on recounts that they don't understand anything about this spirituality. But they are people of goodwill, so they came, so they didn't know what to do. They came all with those, wearing those masks. And she speaks about some Jain sadhus. And Binova Bhave had come. So he asked the mother, give me some message. She says, I knew that if I tell him what, this truth, it's too high for him. Because there are constructions, he was Gandhiji's ardent follower. So she told him, whatever work you are doing is a good work, continue with it. So I think he was involved with Bhudan movement and all that, which was a good movement. He said, whatever work you are doing. Later on she shared, she says he's not ready for that kind of a vastness, but he's a good man of goodwill. So you see the difference between being a good human being and a person who is ready to respond to the spiritual call.
She said it about Dalai Lama.
Yes, she said about
he's a
Dalai
good
Lama.
man.
Good human being.
Yes.
Approaching with some kinship to her heights, uplifted towards luminous secrecies, or conscious of some splendor hidden above, they leap to find her in a moment's flash, glimpsing a light in a celestial vast, but could not keep the vision and the power, and fell back to life's dull, ordinary tone. Very difficult for human nature. So if you read the first darshans, so you will read that, some of them had a glimpse. But if you read the subsequent life, it's very difficult to keep that thing inside. But that moment is enough to, redeem. A mind daring heavenly experiment, growing towards some largeness they felt near, testing the unknowns bound with eager touch, they still were prisoned by their human grain. Another example was this Swamiji of Tantric Swami. So when he came, he would keep doing pujas. Once, that there is a black magic done on mother, and mother describes it, how there were beings who tried to draw her. It's a very interesting thing that within the ashram there were people who tried to just imagine what kind of beings they must be. I can't imagine to do black magic. And she sees the little princess, a whole description. And this Swamiji says, I am going to do a special puja. I am going to encircle the titans. Tell mother not to bother about these things. I will do it. She can continue with and mother laughs. He says, how can I tell him this is not the way? He is doing out of goodwill. So this is not the way to encircle the titans, because I have come deliberately to touch them too, because if you tie them, they will later on become furious. So she says, but he is doing with so much goodwill that he wants to help in the work. So she says, but he won't understand, because Amrita tried to explain to him that what are you saying, man, you don't know what mother is and all that. So there was a little discomfort. So she told Amrita, don't try to explain to him. He is stuck in the tradition, he won't understand. But he's a man of goodwill. He is trying to help me. Let him help. What?
And I think mother said that his meditations with her, he could go quite high.
But the beauty is, she allowed, the best part is, he wanted to help her. And then in the process, mother says that it gave me an opportunity to help him.
Yes.
So he opened up and she entered into his whole world.
Yes.
And she saw that there was a very neat realization up above. She describes it as a cube. And very neat realization of those tantrics. But down below it's chaos. So because there is no transformation. So they live in that region. Many of these saints, they withdraw in some luminous part. And they live there. And with regard to world, they keep a minimum contact. Or they let things fly through them. Like the Paramahansas, that all kinds of impulses arise and go, doesn't matter. But you live in that. And then she saw, she says, when I came out, it gave me such a headache because it was such a narrow space. But for him, it is the highest. It's a very long passage on, I remember the date, 3rd September, I don't remember the year, where she speaks about the traditional yoga and this yoga. And there she speaks about, giving example of this Swamiji. They could not keep up with a tireless step. So she kept saying, I am moving very fast. You can't catch up with me. I am moving, I move million of years ahead. So she kept telling all the disciples, too small and eager for a large-paced will, too narrow to look with the unborn infinite's gaze. Their nature very grew of things too great. And even then, so typically they describe, with Sri Aurobindo it was infinity. So Sri Aurobindo is sitting in his own, gazing at infinity. And all these disciples, some of them are reading a newspaper and, usual thing, chit-chat going on. But the moment they hear mother is coming, so everything goes and quietly they are sitting all like, the pressure, that describes. Her coming meant they felt a pressure of transformation. It's not that she would say something. Even Sri Aurobindo, it goes to, they are chit-chatting and Sri Aurobindo is sitting. Suddenly Sri Aurobindo says, mother is coming, mother is coming. And he also sits bolt straight and everybody, mother is coming. It's not because, she loved all. But the very fact, she's brought the transformational power so much with her that she can't help radiate it. So people felt that pressure of change. Suddenly they became aware of all the things that they had hidden inside. Everything began to come out. So mother is coming, mother is coming. So they couldn't. So after some time, there was a tendency to. That's why when earlier, previously, you see people have a misconception that when there is a problem, bring them to ashram. Even now, sometimes they ask, oh, my so and so has this problem, that problem. So ashram लाने से ठीक हो जाएगा. I said, बढ़ जाएगा 100%. So, they don't believe. Earlier, when people used to have a problem, they were sent away from the ashram. And later on, because they didn't want to go, so mother created lake estate, which if you see, mother's aura extends up to the lake. It's about 10 kilometers. So people who used to have, they couldn't bear the pressure, they were sent into the lake to stay there for some time. And, and even now many people use lake estate as a means to kind of stay away from the intense pressure. Because here there is intense pressure. Whether you like it or not, you will experience the pressure of change. And it takes characteristic forms of first looking at people's defects, and that's a convenient way to hide our own. The mind is busy with others, and then you start seeing yourself, and then you try to hide various defenses and moving away. But living here means to expose oneself to the pressure of transformation. So it was difficult. So he describes that. The nature very grew of things too great, for even the close partners of her thoughts, who could have walked the nearest to her ray, worshipped the power and light they felt in her, but could not match the measure of her soul. Because, it was too great for human consciousness to bear or understand.
I have a story about a great conductor in the 1940s. This drummer in the classical orchestra is talking about their rehearsal, and they're all rehearsing. And suddenly he hears this orchestra performing like never before. And he wonders, how could this be? And the conductor walks into the hall, and that was it. Just as walking into the hall.
Yeah.
Furtwängler. Wilhelm Furtwängler.
These
That
people
presence,
carry that
that
aura,
presence,
that presence, yes. Unknowingly, and whatever light they carry, it immediately, gets into the surrounding. Marvelous lines, these, a friend, for even the close partners of her thoughts, who could have walked the nearest to her ray, worshipped the power and light they felt in her, but could not match the measure of her soul. Dada, after many years, he was asked, tell us about Sri Aurobindo's yoga. He said, only Sri Aurobindo understands his yoga. It is so vast, so profound. He says that all that I have understood is we create complications and then we end up solving them. Because where does the yoga begin and end? I mean, if you really look at this yoga, the moment you try to put it in a classical format, it goes away.
Yeah.
Because you are missing out on many things which are as important in real time. So, even those who were very close to her, Champak Lal writes after many decades of living with her, he says it's impossible to predict or say that mother would like this and mother won't like this. He said just impossible. And he gives just one example. He says in the beginning, mother would not like
flowers.
Artificial flowers.
Yeah, plastic flowers.
So when people got it, she would, one could see that she doesn't like it. He says, but much later, when these flowers became very beautiful and all, she would accept it and feel happy on receiving it. Says, supposing I had gone away at that time and came back after a few decades, and I saw people giving artificial flowers, I would feel that they don't know what mother wants. But actually I wouldn't have known what mother wants. So he says in all humility that after so many decades, it's still not possible to say what mother really wants, does not want, likes, does not like. So many times she has said this, but we human beings are human beings. We are not comfortable without creating a system and a dogma. Because it makes us comfort, that this is it. well defined. But this is infinite's vision. That's what she is. A friend and yet too great wholly to know. Imagine, mother as friend. What more would one ever want in life? And yet, a friend is the one who can know so much about what's going on inside. And yet, when Auroville was being formed, Pranabda told her, Mother, you are divine. But I can tell you Auroville is a mistake. Mother just smiled. She didn't say anything. Who can know what is her, She just smiled. He said, Mother, this is a mistake. You are asking human beings from all over the world to live in harmony and peace. How can it be our small little place is difficult? Mother just smiled. She didn't give any answer, didn't explain. Because it's too profound. Human consciousness cannot understand. And these are people who lived near to her. And yet it was difficult to know what Leela is going on. Her Leela is like that. She walked in their front towards a greater light, their leader and queen over their hearts and souls, one close to their bosoms, yet divine and far. All that we could say is, Mother, come. We can put our cord of love and faith to tie you, but we know that we can never tie you out of your own will, out of your own joy. That's what Satyavan tells Savitri. If you are satisfied with these things, out of your own delight, then step down and come near to me. Because there is nothing which can ever, tying her down, it is ourselves we tie in Savitri. For even, for still the human limits the divine. Even the sage and the seer are hypnotized by one luminous point and see not what small figure of her boundlessness we hold. It's there in Savitri. So he advises, gives us, what to do then. He says that you must surrender, dare to surrender to her absolute. Then the unmanifest reflects his light as in a living glass. This is the only way. To imagine that one understands the mother's workings is impossibility. That he says in the mother itself. Even the gods cannot understand. They cannot fathom how she is working. Admiring and amazed, they saw her stride, attempting with a godlike rush and leap heights for the human stature too remote, or with a slow, great, many-sided toil, pushing towards aims they hardly could conceive, yet forced to be the satellites of her sun, they moved, unable to forego her light. So when she started Auroville, who could have conceived Matri Mandir and all this today? They just, mother is saying, let us do it. Or the whole ashram departments have come. Who could have even imagined that what she has foreseen and where she is leading humanity? So, but they just became satellites of her sun. How beautiful it is. Few more lines, we can stop then, 6, 7. Desiring, they clutched at her with outstretched hands, or followed stumbling in the paths she made, or longing with their self of life and flesh, they clung to her for heart's nourishment and support. Some just wanted things from her. And mother at one place says, what fatigues me is not work, but people who just pull. And in useless ways, they uselessly chatter and they just want, they take. Then she says, hardly anyone ever comes with the urge to give. And when that happens, it is joy. Everybody comes to ask, to want, mother give me this, give me that. And I have seen people and I sometimes wonder, they have lived 30 years, 40 years, almost their life saying, I have very good relation with mother. Whatever I ask, she gives me. Whatever I question, she gives answers. Sometimes I feel the urge to say, what have you done for mother? Have you ever given a thought to it? But, sometimes I have said also, it sounds very rude. I said, what have you done? She gives is her greatness. She will give because she only gives.
Mother even said once about someone who wanted to go to Sri Aurobindo's room.
Yes.
What has he done for Sri Aurobindo?
What has he done for Sri Aurobindo to be allowed to meditate in his room? And then she was asked, Mother, what does it mean to do something for Sri Aurobindo? She says, to do something means to give something of oneself to him. And there is always something you can give. It may be time, it may be energy, it may be work. And I'm amazed. I mean, even today I was meeting and I said, look, she is giving and people are so happy receiving, but I mean, getting all these worldly things. And once, imagine how paradoxical it can be. 20 years, you are only getting everything right according to you from mother. And once things happen which are not according to your this thing, and you are angry on her. So I said, this is the wonderful grace that you ever received in your life. I am not able to see it. This is the grace. Otherwise, you thought that everything I am receiving. So this urge to serve her, that's what she says, is a sure sign of the psychic progress. Yes. The urge to serve itself comes from the psychic. It cannot, otherwise.
And yet once when she was asked, what do you expect from us?
Nothing.
She said nothing. And what should we expect from you? Everything.
The rest they could not see in visible light. Vaguely they bore her inner mightiness, or bound by the senses and the longing heart, adoring with a turbid human love. They could not grasp the mighty spirit she was, or change by closeness to be even as she. That's what Sri Aurobindo reminds us in this yoga. It is not the traditional bhakti of viraha and milan and like you hear some of these traditional bhakti where they get cross with the divine and they said, I am not happy, I am calling you and you are not coming. And abhiman, he says this has no place in this yoga. This yoga bhakti means self-giving, to give oneself more and more. This is the bhakti, not the traditional where you are wanting.
Remember the story of Mother speaking with Dilip Kumar Roy and asked him, why are we here?
Yes.
And he goes through all these different things.
Philosophies.
Yeah. And finally she says one thing, to please Sri Aurobindo.
Because this man had doubt. See, it is after Sri Aurobindo's physical withdrawal.
Yes.
In spite of all this, still has the doubt that maybe mother will now send me away. So he is not sure. And then the mother has to remind him what Sri Aurobindo has loved, that we love. We are here to please Sri Aurobindo. Still, that's destiny. Okay, so we stop here. We meet tomorrow again at 6 o'clock.
Thank you for being back.
Thank you. I was missing it, though mother gave me the dose of Savitri in another way. Yeah. Thank you. Namaste.